So we believe that, the next generation of exciting brands are actually just people that start to, launch products that they're passionate about,
right.
To their audience that's already engaged in them and their whole vibe.
Yeah.
What's limiting that right now, I think, is actually the logistics and operations backend to make it happen.
Well, Andrew, thank you for coming across and hanging out with me.
Pleasure.
To the Connect.
Thank you.
So I know you're working on some cool stuff, and I want to talk about that. Let's talk about what's your journey in technology? How has technology influenced you to get to this point? And we talk about that cool stuff that you're working on.
Absolutely. So it's actually a funny story.
Yeah.
So my first job out of school, I was working for the world's largest pump manufacturing company.
Pumps.
Water pumps.
Pumps.
Pretty much the least sexy thing you could ever do.
I know, right?
And so at that company, I was helping them implement like a Yammer type tool for running their whole like S&OP, sales and operations planning process. And it was working really well. So I was going to leave and consult to them and then start, for a couple other Danish companies, start implementing that. So I was on a flight back to Denmark to pitch this idea to the bosses there. And I sat next to this guy on a plane, and I kind of just told him, my whole master plan. He's like, yeah, it could work, but you can't really scale consulting besides the hours you have in a day. He's like, what you should do is move to San Francisco and be an ops person for one of these new like Uber cab type companies.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, but I don't know anybody in San Francisco. He's like, well, there's this new platform called AngelList. It's like where investors and startups and talent all come together.
Right.
We landed in the Schiphol airport in Amsterdam. I went into the lounge, typed in logistics into AngelList, and ship popped up.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, it's shipping, but it's beautiful design. And, got lucky that I had a mutual contact with Kevin there.
Right.
And 3 weeks later, I moved into his house in San Francisco.
Sweet.
And thus began my my fire hose to the face of tech.
That's crazy. You handle like a lot of logistics stuff over at Ship. I'm sure the experience you gathered there from all of that kind of like catapulted you to
Absolutely.
That
was my PhD in startups. So I was the first employee there.
Right.
When I left, we were a couple hundred, and we're in 6 major markets in the U.S. and really learned a lot about both tech, but also managing people and a lot of the problems that you see as you get to be a larger tech company. But what really resonated with me is our biggest customers were all in this kind of same cohort where it's an eBay power seller. We'd go to their house, pick up all their stuff, send it to their customers. It was a boutique, a fashion boutique that had just spun up a Shopify, and now they're able to reach a broader audience around the country, around the world.
Right.
Didn't have shipping set up, and so we handled the shipping for them. One of our biggest customers was BMW of San Francisco.
Wow.
The owner's son realized that if you put their floor mats, which they would just sell in their storeroom, if you put the floor mats on Amazon and did a little keyword MacGyvering, you could be the first thing that pops up when someone types in BMW floor mat on Amazon.
Yeah.
So they're doing like 130 shipments like a week.
Wow.
Of all this. So what was interesting with all of these is it's like all of a sudden these new platforms exist that unlock this inner entrepreneur that's in a lot of people.
Correct.
And so specifically, I was talking to a lot of the people in the fashion space and just learning like shipping for them was just a very small part of their operational nightmare.
Yeah.
And the whole industry is kind of stuck in the past and predicated on, really big manufacturing runs and, which means long lead times. And so we saw a big opportunity to kind of, move to what CALA is today, which is to create a tool that's as easy to use as eBay or Instagram, but instead of for selling the products, for actually creating the products.
There's so much to unravel in that space, right? Because there's so many great designers, so many people within the space that have all these really, really unique ideas, and then collaborations with other folks. But when it comes to the logistics, manufacturing, all of those things are like such a nightmare to get into that space. And then so you have people on one side that I'm super creative, but I'm not business, right? So I'm not going to be doing all those different things.
Absolutely.
And then you have people who know how to do certain things, but they don't know how to create. So it kind of has a big gap there. So tell me about what you're doing and talk about the product in detail.
Absolutely.
What you're solving in that space too.
Yeah, so the great saint Kanye West once said, all I needed was the infrastructure.
Right.
And he talks a lot in his music about how, you know, he had creativity outside of music.
Yeah.
But everyone was telling him, no, dude, focus on music. Focus on music. Don't try and do clothes. Don't try and do shoes.
Yeah.
But he just kept going, kept going. And we see this all the time where they're extremely creative people with amazing product ideas, but they're spending 90% of their time trying to do the business stuff, trying to do the stuff that's not in their skill set.
Correct.
And thus, maybe they do have some level of success, but the success is always capped because they're only one person or a small team.
Right.
And so what CALA is, it's a platform comprised of powerful creation tools that make it super easy to articulate the products that you want in a digital context, but then it's the manufacturing network to actually, with a button click, start bringing those products to life.
Right.
So as a single creator or a team of 5, you can feel like you have a team of 50 that are all supporting you.
Yeah, so, and what really excites me is because, you know, we were talking before, so I'm in the process of building out my pipeline, merchandise, and that sort of stuff. But as an entrepreneur in the space, having access to these kinds of tools kind of puts you in an advantage, or even puts you on a level playing field for like some of the bigger folks, right? Because they have the pipeline, they have a whole bunch of people involved, but then now you have this tool that kind of is that for you and helps bring in 1 or 2 or connect you to a whole bunch of other people that can potentially push you further and faster in that space. So as a creator, you can create and see your thing come to fruition in a shorter space of time, but also understand that it's going to actually happen without having the fear of where do I go from here? And I love that.
So it used to be the way that you're successful in fashion is you have a ton of money, or you have a family member that has a factory. And that's like the only way that you could really be successful. We're democratizing that so that now the best design is actually what means that you can be successful. And that's really, really exciting. Because it kind of, you know, it levels the playing field. And I think it even, you know, unlocks someone that, you know, would never even go and try because it just seems too daunting on the surface. And when the tools and the technology extract away the complexity, it unlocks like a whole new world of creativity.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Kind of build something to kind of showcase to the masses. And then as a bigger entity, you have all the resources, everything to maximize, all your marketing, all your social media and that sort of stuff. So how do you see what you're doing and where the industry is now with like influencers and people that are coming out as these independent brands wanting to kind of build their own style and cultivate their own following? How do you see that you playing a part in that as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to, well, this might be a little weird. Not if you talk to a 10-year-old, but I know people who have kids that are around that age, and you know they've grown up with social media. They're savvy customers as a young kid, and they're not watching TV.
Correct.
They're watching YouTube. They're on Instagram. They're on Snapchat. And so that's just normal to them. And so for them, a brand is a person. And so we believe that, you know, the next generation of exciting brands are actually just people that start to, you know, launch products that they're passionate about to their audience that's already engaged in them and their whole vibe. What's limiting that right now, I think, is actually the logistics and operations backend to make it happen. So Kylie's figured it out. Kanye's figured it out.
She's figured it out.
But they have resources that, you know, even people with millions of followers don't have. And so we kind of feel like, you know, kind of going back to the whole concept of democratizing that, you know, we're kind of in the mid-wave of influencer marketing right now. And we think the next is when those influencers are going to realize that if I keep doing 10,000, you know, paid posts, I'm going to erode the engagement. So I need to do something more authentic, like launching my own products.
So let's talk about some of the logistical side of things, right? So I launched my product. I want to launch my product. You have the platform, the engine. It's all in one system. So I think you take the headache out of finding the suppliers to do the actual end result, right? But then as an entrepreneur, tell me about, you know, what control do I have to kind of get into the system and make sure that my product becomes my product?
So I mean that's the most important thing, right? We can't be like a Teespring where, you know, it's like you can create anything you want as long as it fits in this very small box, right? And so it's really important to us that we really have it open. And so what you can do through our platform is directly related to what our manufacturers can do.
Yeah.
And it's all through, these collaboration tools that we built that makes it super easy to, you could take a photo of my jacket, but you could drop a pin right here and have a whole conversation with your team about how you want to change out this lapel to be like a blue or a red or something crazy.
Right.
So once you've kind of like articulated what you want, then it's going to be paired with the best fit partner. So if you're doing 50 units, we're going to pair it with a factory that specializes in that. And they're going to start sending you fabric options. So they're going to say, oh, we saw that you pulled in the North Face jacket as a reference. Here's a nylon that we think you might like.
Amazing.
Once you approve the materials, then we'll actually go into the sample.
Right.
And so depending on your skill set as a designer, your project may go directly into like the sampling process, or we might pair it with a technical designer who has tons of years of experience in suiting or outerwear or men's or women's or sunglasses, whatever. And they'll actually work with you directly through the platform to take it to a whole nother level of specificity.
Yeah.
So by the time it gets handed off to the manufacturer, there's no questions. They're just executing.
Right.
And the cool thing about that is by using the platform, we have a whole kind of like task management test checklist built in.
Yeah.
You never get too far without a quality or an approval. So there's no surprises. And so if you talk to people that make fashion products, they're always like, oh yeah, like
the quality, QC is crazy.
And then 100 units showed up and they were blue and I wanted green. It's like, well, when you're doing it over 1,500 emails, you can understand how things would actually get lost in context there. And so what that does is, especially for entrepreneurs or designers or brands, it really allows you to every step of the process, you can be as involved or as not involved as you want.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So if you're a bigger brand and you're want to like launch some cool products, we actually have ghost designers that you could tap someone that was someone who I've mentioned earlier as creative director.
Yeah.
So you could tap and actually have that person ghost designing for your brand,
right.
And still for an affordable amount.
So let's talk about that for a second, right? So let's talk about collaborations, right? It would be really cool and unique to kind of see, well, hey, I'm coming out with a specific product and it's really good. How can I tap X to kind of be a collaborator on my project with me? Like those kind of things get me excited because that's the space that I'm in, and I want to see people do different things that are really super creative, but they don't have the access, and then they get the access through the platform.
So our global fashion director, Ruth Gruka, before she joined us, she was the global fashion director for IMG WME, and her whole job was connecting Snoop Dogg with Joy Rich to do a collaboration at Made LA or ASAP Ferg or all this stuff. And so that's kind of part of what we're really excited about is like almost taking these weird collaborations. So, it'd be cool if AWS was collaborating with A Cold Wall or something like that. We think that when you can remove the complexity and the stress of actually making the products, it really kind of unlocks like a lot of cool ideas.
A real creative genius behind the pipeline.
And she would always, why she joined us, she's like straight up, we could put together these cool collaborations, but then no one could get it made in a short amount of time. And so, of course, anytime you're dealing with talent, sometimes it becomes last minute, right?
Yep.
And if it takes you 6 months to launch the product, it's just never going to work.
Yeah.
And so, we think any company of any size or shape can build an engaged audience through merch type products, whether they're really screen printed t-shirts or like actual proper like fashion products.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So technology is changing rapidly, right? Things happen at the blink of an eye. So in the future of fashion, tell me what's your vision for like the future of fashion, online, offline, and digital technology? Absolutely.
So we believe the future is AI-powered creation tools and on-demand manufacturing. So I see a world where in the US, Amazon has a fulfillment center like 60 miles away from every person in the US. I see a very similar model where there's automated apparel production centers outside of major cities so that you as a designer, you launch your product, maybe you get a physical sample, you push it out to your network, and then nothing's actually made until people buy it. And then the kind of kicker of that is looping in the actual, computer vision and body scanning technology so that it's not just the blazer that, John Paul Gaultier designed, it's actually that blazer custom fitted to you.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's talk about virtual reality and augmented reality for a little bit. How I've seen some applications, I've played around, I've built some things with fashion and in that space. What do you see being a household brand, not brand, but a household application for something like that?
I mean, you know, if you think about, so my wife grew up in Canfield, Ohio.
Yeah.
There's no Nordstrom in Canfield, Ohio. There's no Bloomingdale's. There's no Barney's, right? There's like, I don't even know. There's like one department store. And so you can imagine a future where people can have these amazing private shopping experiences that are really only accessible to the 1% or people in, you know, major markets.
Yeah.
I see that being a really powerful and sticky experience for both men and women.
Right.
Especially if you could see a world where your favorite influencer that you're following is actually taking you through that experience in a virtual or VR type experience.
Yeah.
But it becomes beautiful when it's actually married with a physical product.
Yeah.
And so we think initially it'll be, you know, people having those experiences with you know, stock that's already sitting at in Nordstrom or Barney's or what have you.
Yeah.
The problem with that though is if you're trying it on in a virtual context and it doesn't fit you,
then what?
then you're actually not going to buy it.
Exactly.
And that actually becomes tough for the retailers, where a lot of retailers, you know, they know that you're going to buy stuff and you're probably not going to return it if it doesn't fit, because it's too hard to actually return it. And so it's going to be a tricky sell for companies that are trying to sell those into existing manufacturers or existing retailers, because you could actually short-term hurt conversion, and no retailer is willing to like play with that.
Yeah, for true. Yeah, that's a really, really, really good point. So then let's say your platform is running really, really good. There's all of this other technology in the space. So 5 years from now, how are you guys going to kind of play a part in launching major careers for other fashion designers?
I mean, I think, you know, we actually just last week gave away the CALA award to Parsons Senior. So they're going to be able to produce their whole collection on our platform. We're going to help them launch it. And so, you know, historically, that person may have to, you know, go work for Marc Jacobs for a couple years to kind of, you know, work their way up in the industry, build the relationships to be able to do it. Now we're just kind of like, you make really cool clothes, you know, fly and be free.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But that's today. 5 years from now, I think it's a pretty clear trajectory towards, you know, people actually designing in either an AR or a VR context.
Yeah.
You know, screens are limiting. Being able to touch and feel can be limiting. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to be able to virtually touch and feel fabric within the next 5 years, maybe. But we do think that's going to become a really big part of it.
Yeah.
As well as, you know, providing additional visibility into your supply chain, you know, whether it's through AR or not. I think that's going to be pretty big. Potentially some applications, you know, on the QA side. You can imagine someone sewing and, you know, having some QR or AR glasses to kind of help guide them and provide additional context about what they're actually working on. It's coming, right?
It's coming,
It's like, I don't know if it'll be next year or the year after, but Apple's going to put out some glasses. Samsung will do it before them.
And everybody's going to be in the game.
Yeah, it's going to be a new form factor. It's going to be a new platform similar to how the iPhone was.
Yeah.
And it's going to unlock a whole new world in both new industries, but also existing industries.
That's awesome. Well, Andrew, it was a pleasure meeting you, man.
Absolutely.
And I hope to see good things come out of CALA.
I hope to see good collaborations come out of you.
For sure, man. Definitely. Let's do something, Get Connect in New York.
Absolutely.
Grab some coffee and kind of talk about what's next, you know?
Perfect.
Love it.
Fantastic.
Thanks, man.
All right.